fertilization and development. What happens when sperm meets egg? If we look at the female reproductive structure, that's where it all starts. We'll start at the ovary, and FSH will be secreted from the pituitary gland, causing the follicle to develop, and that follicle is eventually going to rupture. At day 14, that's when that happens, we have ovulation, and that's going to release an egg from the follicle into the fallopian tube or the oviduct. And the egg's going to move through the oviduct, and if there's sperm present, then fertilization is able to occur. Fertilization is when sperm actually penetrates the egg cell and the two nuclei fuse. When the two nuclei fuse, it's then called a zygote, and that will have restored the chromosome number to 46. Remember that the egg cell and the sperm cell each have 23 chromosomes, 23 from mom, 23 from dad, and then the combination of the two will form the 46 chromosomes that the individual needs to develop. So that zygote is going to move through the oviduct, and as it moves through the oviduct, it starts to divide, and this is called cleavage. And that one cell will then become two, and then four, and then those 4 cells become 8 cells, and this is all mitotic cell division. Eventually, the cells move to the uterine wall and into the uterus and becomes this really big ball of cells. Now, when it's a ball of about 50 cells or so, it's called a morula, and that happens about day 3. Then that morula will hollow out and become a hollow ball of cells, and that's called a blastocyst. Then the blastocyst will implant itself into hopefully, into the uterine wall so that it can further develop. And implantation will happen about a week after fertilization. After implantation takes place, gastrulation takes place, which is the formation of this gastrula. If you see this structure here, where the mouse is, it's actually the folding in of the blastocyst or the blastula, and those will develop into different layers. If we look at gastrulation a little closer, we see our blastocyst, and then the folding in of that outer ring of cells, and then we have all these layers formed. And there's 3 primary germ layers that we call. And ectoderm is the outer part of the cells, will form the skin and nerves. The mesoderm is the middle, and that's going to form the blood and muscle. And then the endoderm is the innermost layer of cells here, and that's going to form the digestive tract and other organs. Then if we look later into development after, this would be well after the 3-month mark because we're looking at a fetus, we would see that the amnion has formed. Now, if we go back to the other slide, this process, okay, this is an embryo. This is a developing embryo as the cells divide, okay, it becomes a big, big mass of cells and the primary germ layers form. Then, after 8 weeks, we would call the structure a fetus. When it gets big enough, about 3 months, we have the formation of the amnion and the amniotic fluid. And this is going to form as kind of a shock absorber, and it's going to protect the developing fetus. And then attached also, we have the umbilical cord, and that's going to be a transport mechanism. There's going to be 2 arteries and a vein going here, and that's going to bring in nutrients and carry out waste, such as carbon dioxide. We can also end up poisoning the fetus by giving them drugs and alcohol because that's in the bloodstream, and those things can diffuse into the bloodlines going to the fetus and cause complications. Then we have the placenta, which is formed from the chorion, which would be this membrane in here. This whole structure is the uterus, and then on the inner part we have the chorion, and this chorion is going to form the placenta. And the placenta is going to be the organ which nutrients and wastes are exchanged between the embryo and the mother. This is all going to happen by the process of diffusion. Even though we have an exchange of nutrients and waste, there is no mixing of blood between the mother and the fetus. Then we can look at a little bit of embryo and fetal growth. So we have an embryo up to about this point here where the mouse is, and then we call the child a fetus. And if we look at the word version of this, Fertilization is when sperm meets egg, happens in the fallopian tube, and then we have the blastocyst and the morula, and the blastocyst. And the morula is that solid ball of cells, and the blastocyst is that hollow ball of cells, and that blastocyst can implant itself at day 7 into the uterine wall. Then after that, gastrulation takes place and forms the 3 germ layers, the ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. At the end of the 3rd week, we start to develop the nervous and digestive systems, and the placenta has formed. Then 8 weeks, we call the structure of fetus. After 3 months, most of the major organs have formed and the umbilical cord. And then 4, 5, and 6 months, we get lots of tissues and the skeleton and a very strong fetal heartbeat. And after 6 months, the fetus can actually survive outside of the body, but we like to have it carried to what's called to term or till the gestational period, which is 9 months. And gestation will happen in different times according to the organism. So humans, the gestation period is 9 months. Elephants, it's 2 years. Now, at gestation, or 9 months, the fetus is ready for birth. So the body, when ready, will release oxytocin, which is a hormone that's going to cause uterine contractions, and that's called labor. Then the cervical opening will expand and the amniotic sac breaks. The term when a woman's water breaks is actually when the amniotic sac breaks to release the fetus down the birth canal. Then we have infancy, which is weeks after birth up to 2 years. So you're an infant until you're 2 years old. And then childhood is that time period until you hit puberty, and adolescence is from puberty to adulthood. And then adulthood is your end of adolescence up till the time of death.